HOA Karen called the cops on my cabin, threatened me with eviction, and demanded I tear down my property within 48 hours. She screamed that I was violating community standards, destroying property values, and that she'd make sure I'd regret ever moving into her neighborhood. But what this entitled Karen didn't know: I don't just own my cabin, I own the entire 47-acre property, including the house she's been living in for the past 3 years. And when the police arrived, her face went from smug to shocked in 3 seconds flat. Stay until the end because her reaction when she found out the truth is absolutely priceless. She threatened to evict me from my own property. Wait until you hear what happened next. Smash that subscribe button because this revenge story has a twist you won't believe. Let me take you back 6 months. My name's Marcus, and I inherited a beautiful 47-acre property in the Blue Ridge Mountains from my grandfather. The land includes a main lodge, 5 rental cabins, hiking trails, and here's the important part: 3 residential houses on the property's edge that my grandfather had built and rented out over the years. Now, my grandfather was old school. He preferred handshake deals and keeping things low-key. He'd rented those 3 houses to families for decades at below-market rates, because he believed in helping people build stable lives. The tenants paid rent, maintained their yards, and everyone was happy. When I inherited the property, I inherited those rental agreements too. The 3 families living there, all long-term renters. No HOA. No homeowners association. Just straightforward landlord-tenant relationships. I decided to renovate one of the old hunting cabins for myself, a gorgeous 2-bedroom log structure with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. It needed work: new roof, updated electrical, modern plumbing, and a fresh coat of stain on the logs. That's when I met Karen. Karen lived in house number 2, a beautiful 3-bedroom craftsman-style home with a wraparound porch. She'd been renting from my grandfather for 3 years at $1,200 a month, which was insanely cheap for the area. Market rate: closer to $2,800. The first time Karen approached me, I was outside my cabin supervising the roofing crew. Karen: excuse me. Excuse me. Who authorized this construction? Me: hi. I'm Marcus. I own the property. Just renovating my cabin. Karen: your cabin? This is an HOA-regulated community. You can't just build things without approval from the Architectural Review Committee. Me: there's no HOA here. This is private property. My property. Karen: I've lived here for 3 years. There's absolutely an HOA. I'm on the board. And this, gesturing at my cabin, this monstrosity violates every community standard we have. Here's where it gets good, folks. Me: ma'am, respectfully, there is no HOA. My grandfather owned this entire property. I now own it. You're renting house number 2 from me. Karen: renting? I own my home. How dare you suggest I'm some kind of tenant? She really thinks she owns my house. This is about to get wild. I pulled out my phone and showed her the property deed. All 47 acres. Her address clearly within the boundary lines. She snatched the phone from my hand, looked at it for exactly 2 seconds, then threw it back at me. Karen: fake. That's photoshopped. I'm calling the police and my lawyer. And that's exactly what she did. Over the next 2 weeks, Karen launched an all-out war against me. Day 3, she created a Facebook group called Residents Against Illegal Construction and invited the other 2 rental tenants. They declined. She posted Ring camera footage of my construction crew with captions like "criminal activity in our neighborhood." Day 5, she filed a complaint with the county zoning office claiming I was operating an illegal commercial construction site. The inspector came out, looked at my permits, complimented my contractor's work and left. Case closed. Day 7, she left a handwritten notice on my cabin door: cease and desist all construction within 48 hours or face legal action from the HOA board. Failure to comply will result in fines of $500 per day and forced removal. I called my attorney. We laughed. He sent her a letter explaining in very professional legal language that she was renting, there was no HOA, and she needed to stop harassing the property owner immediately. Her response? She doubled down. Day 10, Karen installed a giant banner across her porch that read, "Stop illegal construction, save our community values." Day 12, she organized a protest which consisted of her standing at the entrance to the property with a homemade sign that said "Honk if you hate greedy developers." Nobody honked. But the Amazon delivery guy did give her a weird look. Text overlay, the audacity. It gets so much better. Day 14. The day everything came to a head. I was inside my newly renovated cabin, literally just hanging curtains, when I heard pounding on my door. Bang 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 bang. I opened it to find Karen with her phone out, recording me, and two police officers standing behind her looking absolutely exhausted. Karen, that's him. That's the man who's illegally squatting on HOA property and conducting unauthorized construction in violation of community covenants. Officer Rodriguez, ma'am, we've been over this, Karen. I have documentation. I have proof. This man is destroying our property values and operating without permits. Me, officers, I'm Marcus Chen. I own this property. I have all the necessary permits. Would you like to see them? Officer Martinez, that would be helpful, sir. I invited everyone inside, yes, even Karen, who barged in like she was entering a crime scene, and showed the officers my property deed covering all 47 acres, my building permits, all approved, and posted my grandfather's will leaving me the property, the rental agreements for all 3 houses, including Karen's. Officer Rodriguez, looking at Karen, ma'am, according to these documents, you're renting house number 2 from Mr. Chen. There's no HOA. This is private property. Karen, that's impossible. I've been paying into the HOA for years. Me, wait, who have you been paying? Karen, the HOA account. Every month. $150 for community maintenance. Oh no. She's been scamming herself, folks. I looked into this later. Karen had created a separate bank account 3 years ago called Mountain View HOA Dues, and had been transferring $150 from her personal account to this HOA account every single month. She'd been paying herself, thinking it was going to some fictional HOA. She'd literally scammed herself out of $5,400 over 3 years. Officer Martinez, ma'am, I'm looking at your rental agreement right here. You're paying $1,200 a month in rent to Mr. Chen's grandfather's estate, which is now managed by Mr. Chen. There is no homeowners association. There never was. Karen's face went through every stage of grief in 10 seconds, denial, that can't be right, anger, you're all lying. Bargaining, but I've seen the HOA bylaws. Me, Karen, did you create fake HOA documents? Karen, I just wanted to maintain standards. When I moved in, your grandfather said I could help keep the community nice. I thought that meant I could create standards. Officer Rodriguez, ma'am, you can't create a fake HOA and enforce fake rules on someone else's private property. You definitely can't file false police reports. Karen, but the construction. It's ruining everything. Me, Karen, I'm literally just renovating a cabin that's been on this property since 1987. It was here before you moved in. The officers asked if I wanted to press charges for harassment, filing false reports, or trespassing. I declined. But I did have my attorney draft a formal cease and desist letter. The ultimate face of defeat. But wait, there's more. Here's what happened next. Within 24 hours, Karen took down her banner, deleted her Facebook group, stopped all complaints. Within 1 week, she apologized, sort of. It was more like, I'm sorry, you misunderstood my intentions to preserve community integrity, but I'll take it. Within 1 month, Karen's lease came up for renewal. Now, I'm not a vengeful person, but I am a businessman. I raised her rent to $2,200, still below market value at $2,800, and still a great deal. She complained. My attorney reminded her that $2,200 for a 3-bedroom house in the Blue Ridge Mountains was generous, and that any other landlord would charge more. She signed the lease. The other 2 tenants. Awesome people. I kept their rent exactly the same because they never caused problems, respected boundaries, and understood what rental property means. My cabin. Gorgeous. I finished it 2 weeks later. It's now my weekend retreat, and I rent it out on Airbnb when I'm not using it. The best part. Karen occasionally walks by when she thinks I'm not looking. She still glares at my cabin like it personally offended her. But she keeps her distance now. Don't mess with property owners, especially when you're the tenant. So that's the story of how an HOA Karen tried to evict me from my own property, without realizing she was renting from me the entire time. If you enjoyed this neighbor nightmare story, smash that like button, subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for more insane tales of property disputes, HOA horror stories, and entitled neighbor takedowns. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have raised her rent? Evicted her? Let me know. And if you've got your own crazy neighbor story, submit it through the link in the description. You might be featured in our next video. Remember folks, always know who actually owns the property before you start making threats. I'll see you in the next Neighbor Wars. Peace.